Good morning, y'all. Debbie Arnold with Dining with Debbie. I'm here making biscuits with you this morning. I've had several people ask me about that, and so I thought today would be a good day. We're going to whip up a can of biscuits in no time, and you're going to just have some of the best biscuits I think that you've ever made and that you will enjoy. I've made all kinds of biscuits over the years. I mean, tried every method, and just, like I said, tried them all. And they all have their benefits. They all have, their pros and their cons. This particular recipe that I'm going to share with you today is one that comes from my friend Carrie Morey in Charleston, South Carolina. Carrie is the founder, owner, marketer, just everything entrepreneur for Callie's Little Biscuits. So if you've ever heard of Callie's Little Biscuits, she's the woman behind that. This recipe was her mother's. Her mother was a longtime caterer in Charleston, and so Carrie, as a young mother, decided she needed an outlet, a creative outlet, and needed a business adventure, and so she got with her mother, and they formed this promotion of Callie's Little Biscuits, and it's just gone phenomenal. I mean, Carrie has been on all kinds of television shows, The Today Show, The Kitchen on the Food Network. She's been in all kinds of magazines like Garden and Gun, whatever. But anyway, this is her biscuit recipe, Charleston's Little Biscuits. And I was privileged for last fall and the fall before to take a class with her at her office, her studio, her plant, whatever you want to call it, in Charleston. And she does make all the biscuits, she and her staff make all the biscuits that they sell by hand. And they ship them nationwide, and then they have some retail outlets around too. So if you're ever in Charleston, be sure to look up Callie's Hot Little Biscuits. You'll find one in the city market there, and then there's some others scattered around too. Anyway, back to our biscuits. You're going to start with my favorite flour for biscuit making, and that's White Lily self-rising flour. Now this is the unbleached, and sometimes it's a little bit harder to find. But that's what I recommend. If you can't find anything except the bleached self-rising, then get that. You know, my grandmother, my mama, made biscuits probably every day of her life. She would get up every morning and in the dark put out a pan of biscuits. I don't think she ever measured anything. It was always a handful of this and a handful of that. And I never saw the woman with any kind of printed recipe of any kind, but she was a great cook. And I stayed with them, especially when I started school, because I could walk from my mama and my papa's house to the elementary school where I went. And so I would see her making these biscuits every morning. And my grandfather a lot of times worked at night. And so he would be walking home from work in the morning, and those hot biscuits would be ready for him when he came along. Okay, I'm only making a half a recipe today because there's just two of us. One nice thing about these biscuits is that they freeze well. I just wrap them, a couple at a time, and some saran wrap, and then I double bag them, and put them in the freezer and pull them out as we need them. But they're so easy to make fresh. I wouldn't hesitate, to make a pan full and not freeze them. All right, I have already kind of stirred this flour up, and I recommend that you do that because flour settles in the shipping. We're going to take 2 cups of self-rising flour. And y'all, this is a dry measure. I weigh some things, but I'm not a purist when it comes to weighing or measuring by cupfuls or whatever. But I am a purist when it comes to dry measuring cups and liquid measuring cups. This is a dry measuring cup. All right, so we have 2 cups of our flour in there, and then on this recipe we're going to take 4 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and we're going to chunk it into the flour. This is a contrast because used to when I made biscuits, it had to be it was frozen butter, and I would shave it with a grater into my flour because, the thought was the colder it was, the better your biscuit was. But this one is totally not like that, and what makes it so easy to do. All right, we're going to take that and we're going to work it with our fingers, and you got to use your hands on this. I'm sorry, y'all. A few weeks ago, I taught 3 13-year-olds how to make these biscuits, and y'all, they did a great job. They really did, and they loved them. And according to their parents, there weren't any biscuits left for them to eat when they got home. Anyway, we're going to work that butter in. We're going to work it in finely, kind of like, little pea size, I guess you'd say. And you got to do that. You got to pick it up and rub it in with your hands, just like that. Callie and her staff like I said, make these biscuits by the thousands, and it's amazing to watch them work. But they are so congenial and just seem to have such a good time working together. It's all local, but like I said, they ship them nationwide. I've seen them, I think, at Fresh Market or Whole Foods in the freezer section. They're not cheap, but you got to consider they're all handmade and they're shipped locally and nationwide. All right, our butter is really worked in there. Next, we're going to take a fourth of a cup of room temperature cream cheese. And again, remember, I'm making half of the recipe. You're going to find the whole recipe on my blog, diningwithdebbie.net, under Callie's Charleston Biscuits. I have to give her credit because it is her recipe. All right. So now with the cream cheese, you're not going to work it as much as you did the butter. You want to leave larger pieces of the cream cheese, because what that does is that creates air pockets and moisture pockets in your biscuits, and that makes your biscuits puff up and be lighter. I have preheated my oven to 500 degrees. Actually, my little oven, this convection steam oven, only goes to 450. But in your regular oven, you want to heat it to 500 degrees. Once you put the biscuits in, you're going to decrease that temperature immediately to 450 degrees. All right, you see how I'm kind of leaving lumps there? Do not overwork it. It's one of the real keys to biscuit making. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a cup and a half of buttermilk. Actually, probably won't add that much. Since this is a half of the recipe, I'll just use 3/4 of a cup. And you can't ever tell for sure exactly how much buttermilk you're going to use. Now, I had used this earlier, so I already had it shook up. All right, I'm going to start with part of this. I'm not going to pour it all in there. Made that little well in the center. Starting from the outside, I'm going to start working that flour into that buttermilk. Okay? And this, like I said, this is a hand messy job, but hands are the best tools for this one. All right. This is going to be a really wet dough. It's not going to be like a cookie dough, that's kind of dry. All right, needs a little bit more buttermilk, so I'm going to add in the rest. I don't think I'll need any more. You want to have melted about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter, and I do use unsalted butter. And if you want to, you can sprinkle in some salt with this if you use unsalted butter. I don't generally. I like to control the amount of salt we eat. All right, do not overwork it. I cannot stress that enough. If you overwork it, you're going to have flat, tough biscuits, y'all. All right, I'm going to set this aside, clean off my hands, and clear a workspace, because we're going to press out these biscuits and then cut them out. I'm going to put some flour on my countertop, and I had cleaned the countertop off earlier, so it's good and sanitary. I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. You don't need to grease it or anything like that. All right, take your biscuit dough that's pretty wet, and you haven't overworked it. You're going to put it right in the middle of that flour. And you're really not going to knead this, like you might bread dough or whatever. Just stirring it around so that I get the flour all over. I just prefer, honestly, to just press it out. If you feel more comfortable rolling it out, then by all means go for it. Okay, sorry about that noise. All right, I'm using a 2-inch biscuit cutter. My grandmother, I think, probably used a tin can of some kind. All right. One of the keys in doing this, in cutting your biscuits, is don't twist it. Don't go like this. If you do that, what you're going to do is seal the edges of your biscuits, and they will not rise properly. And they will be, flatter than what you would like. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you got flour on there. You're going to go down and up and out, just like that, down and up and out. And when you put these biscuits in your pan, you want to snuggle them up and let them be real friendly with one another. Because what they'll do is they'll push one another up and you'll have higher rising biscuits, okay? I made these fairly thick. If you like thinner biscuits, then roll them out thicker or push them out thicker. Now, you can re-roll or re-press, whatever, the dough one time. I don't recommend a third time. You'll see a difference even in the texture of the ones that you roll, press out the second time. You don't want to do a whole lot to them. Okay. You don't want to lose any of those precious biscuits either, do you? We don't eat a lot of biscuits just because we don't eat a lot of bread. But when I want a good biscuit, I want these. All right, so we have this leftover dough. We're not going to throw it away. We're going to use it. This is a little trick Carrie showed us. She creates a snake. You remember back in school when you would create snakes out of clay or Play-Doh or whatever you might have? And this is going to become kind of a barrier that you're going to put up next to your biscuits in your pan. And that's going to push those biscuits to rise even higher. So I'm going to lay it out here. I've got this edge over here that's a little bit lonely, but we're going to have to leave it. Okay, so we have those in. We're going to put these in the oven and decrease our temperature to 450. We're going to bake them probably about, I start looking at 12 minutes or so because I do have it on convection, but anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes if you're just cooking in a regular oven. But start checking them around 10 and see what they do. Oh, we got to do this. This is one of the most important things. Got to brush them with butter. You can't have biscuits and not butter. So we're going to brush the tops of them with that butter. And you're also going to brush them with butter when they come out of the oven. You know they're going to be good, don't you? I mean, we love our biscuits and our butter in the South for sure. I like the biscuits just plain with butter, or one of my favorite ways is with strawberry freezer jam that I make. I don't eat a lot of jam. I do make a lot of jam because I make pepper jam of all kinds. Some of you know that. All right, got them nicely brushed. And we'll use some more melted butter, like I said, when it comes out of the oven. I'm going to put these in the oven and let them cook, and then I'll bring them out and show you how they look. Let's get making these biscuits, y'all. I think you'll enjoy them, and I know your family will. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, our biscuits are ready to come out of the oven. We're going to brush them with butter and then serve them up. And they're going to be delicious, y'all. I promise. Don't forget, when you are putting your biscuits in the oven, you've set the oven on 500 degrees. When you put the biscuits in, you want to immediately decrease that temperature to 450 degrees. Forgot my brush. All right, so here we are. We're going to brush these biscuits with butter. Oh, they are so good. Oh, they smell good. Again, I like to use White Lily unbleached self-rising flour for these. Saves you that step of having your leaveners that you have to measure in there for one thing. It just works really well. White Lily flour is milled from soft winter wheat that is grown in the South. And so it's perfect for these biscuits. It's really soft. And like I said, or at least I think I said, it's not a flour I would use for everything that I bake because flours cook differently. And you just have to read up on those and study those. All right, so here we have our delicious homemade biscuits. They're going to be great with our lunch today. Hope you'll make these up. If you have any questions, give me a call, give me an email, or send me a message on Facebook. I'll be glad to try to answer those for you as well as I can. Again, this recipe is on my blog. That's diningwithdebbie.net, and you'll find it under Callies Charleston Biscuits. But if you just do a search for biscuits, they're going to come up. Biscuits was one of the shows I did for THV, and it was the whole show practically that day. And Made all kinds of different ones. I use this basic recipe for lots of variations, my cheese, garlic biscuits, etc. Anyway, so get you some white lily self-rising flour. I find mine at Kroger most of the time. Sometimes I have to order it, especially if I want to get the unbleached. For some reason, they don't seem to carry that. All flour, y'all, is bleached, by the way, but there's a difference in the way that it's done. And I'm not going to go into that today. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a really, really happy day and a blessed day, and I hope you get some biscuits going in your oven real soon. Have a great, great day, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for coming.